Hey, what's up, guys? It's Reed Young, aka Shuda here. I'm going to be reviewing a 2-4-6 max hand where we have pocket tens and we call it re-raise against a tight player, and we see a flop that's not too great for our hand. We don't really have anything going for us here. So I wanted to talk about this hand because I think I can explain it in a way that's going to give you guys a more visual representation of what's actually going on here. And I know I'm saying visual when I'm just explaining something, but hopefully you'll see what I mean. So our reads are our opponent is extremely tight. There's not any sample size posted here, so I'm not really sure what to think about that because this is pretty much unreasonably tight. Yeah, he three bets the cutoff in the big blind 12%. Again, that just doesn't really align with the overall reads of our opponent because there really aren't many people who are just going to be three betting 100% of their hands out of position in really any spot. You know, like every time he has pocket sixes, is he going to three bet it or flat it? I mean, pretty much everyone always flats those hands. So anytime there's some discrepancy like that, you can kind of be pretty confident on blaming it on sample size instead of taking what is likely something that has to do with standard error so literally that you're playing, you know, such a strange strategy against an opponent against who you don't have a lot of information on. So, you know, statistics rants aside, let's get into the hand here. So we raise on the cutoff, and the big blind three bets us. We are 100 big blinds effective, as you guys can see the bold text. We have 174 big blinds, but the big blind only has 100. So we're 100 big blinds effective stack sizes. We call the re-raise with tens. I think that's probably a good idea. Even with limited information, getting in tens here against a lot of people can actually be pretty thin, and I think a lot of people just automatically get it in without really thinking about their opponent. So when we have a bit of an idea or an inkling that our opponent is overly tight, then I think a flat is, you know, by far the standard and likely best choice. So we call. The flop comes pretty poorly for us, and it's ace 8 7 with a flush draw, and the big blind continuation bets just over half pot, which we would expect him to do probably on this board with close to 100% of his range. You know, maybe he doesn't continuation bet jacks through kings, and a lot of people don't, especially tighter players, because they just don't fully understand situations as a whole, and that's why they play so tightly. So you can kind of assume a few other things, and I think one of those assumptions, and maybe this is a little bit out there, but you guys can let me know what you think about it in the comments, is that a lot of tighter players just continuation bet here with 100% of the range, and then they give up on the turn if they're unimproved. So if he has something like Queen Jack of Diamonds, unless the turn's a diamond, or you know, maybe a 10 or a 9 or something like that, he's just going to be check folding the turn and check folding the river. So if he is three betting out of position as a bluff, which, you know, we kind of assume he is to be playing pocket tens the way we're playing, on an ace-high flop as well if we plan to continue, I think flatting is going to be the best choice here. And so when I'm talking about like a visual representation of this, I want you guys to kind of imagine the flop is like the top part of like a funnel that you might use to like pour some liquid into to try to get it into like a smaller container. So as you go through the hand, our range becomes narrowed down, it becomes more defined for any line that we might take toward the river. So at the very top of that funnel, he is going to be continuation betting a lot of air, even if he is three betting out of position very tightly. 12% is not that tight at all, but I think more important is the preflop statistics. I would assume that the extrapolation to the pre-flop aggression is a bit more valuable depending on the sample size, since a 15-12 player is extremely unlikely just to be 3-betting all of his hands out of position, and 12% out of position is pretty loose for most players, let alone a 15-12. So like I said, there's almost certainly some sort of like sample size discrepancy here. But I think, anyway, going back to the funnel metaphor, I think a great idea is to call this flop with a lot of your medium strength hands like this, with the idea of trying to get to a showdown. So unless you improve on the turn to a 10 or a 9 maybe, just trying to take the hand to a showdown, and giving up otherwise. And what actually ends up happening is, I know a lot of people are like, well, his range is going to be pretty strong on this board, and that's true. But you can't just call the flop with aces, otherwise it's going to be extremely easy to play against you on the turn and river. So he can actually continuation bet once with all of his air and play extremely well if we do plan on folding tens on this flop, or other hands, similarly strength. Of course, something like kings that we may have slow played pre-flop does a bit better than tens, just because there's fewer overcards to our hand that we have to worry about. But if he is 3-betting 12%, a lot of the time we're going to be 4-betting those hands. So I think tens could be one of the stronger non-ace-x hands in our range. So I'd advocate flatting here and folding to a turn bet. And we're not really worried about that turn bet per se, because we can construct our range in such a way that if he is just 2-barreling all the time, that he's just going to run into an ace so often that the risk is going to outweigh the reward. So you can't just barrel us, without any regard for our range, because we've already constructed the range such that it induces the amount of bluffs that we want him to make on the turn. Having seen us, potentially fold tens or something like tens on a turn in a hand before, now he's trying to either get too thin a value with something like pocket kings, or he's trying to semi-bluff a bit more often than he should, and we just have ace-jack next time. So by properly constructing our range and our calling range on the flop, I think you actually get more action, and you can see showdown against a lot of one-and-done type players. So if he's just c-betting the flop and giving up, we get to see a showdown a lot of the time with a weak hand, and even though the flop's scary, I think flatting it is the best play. So let me know what you guys think about this video. If you want to hit that like button, it helps get the video spread around YouTube, and I would definitely appreciate it. So if you're enjoying the information I'm talking about, that would be a nice little thank you. But yeah, I'll see you guys in the comments section. Have a good day.